Imagine giving a frontline army squad a nuclear weapon so compact it fits on a jeep, then realising firing it might kill your own men before the enemy even arrives. The United States Davy Crockett system was meant to level the Cold War battlefield, but its deadliest flaw was invisible. Why did America gamble with a weapon too dangerous to use, and how did it nearly cross a line that could never be uncrossed? In the early years of the Cold War, American military planners faced a problem that seemed unsolvable with ordinary weapons. The Soviet Union's armies, parked just across the Iron Curtain, outnumbered NATO forces by a wide margin. Tanks and mechanised infantry could pour through the plains of Central Europe faster than any conventional defence could stop them. Washington's answer was to make nuclear firepower as common as machine guns. The Pentagon policy memos from the mid-1950s reveal a single-minded determination. If strategic nuclear bombs could keep the Soviets at bay, then smaller, tactical versions might do the same for frontline troops. President Eisenhower's New Look defence strategy cut back on expensive standing armies, and instead pushed for nuclear weapons at every level of command. This thinking led to a simple, radical question. What if even the smallest army units could stop a Soviet attack with their own atomic weapon? The Army's solution was the Battle Group Atomic Delivery System, referred to as BGADS, a program that aimed to give nuclear capability directly to infantry squads. Major General John Hinrichs at Picatinny Arsenal was handed the job in 1958. The requirements were clear. The weapon had to be portable, operate with a small crew, and move quickly to wherever Soviet tanks might break through. It could not be a massive missile or a heavy artillery piece. It had to fit in a jeep, or be carried to a choke point by just a few men. The concept was radical, and it reflected a new kind of deterrence logic. The project was given a name that captured the era's blend of bravado and folklore, Davy Crockett, after the frontiersman known for fighting against impossible odds. The name was more than a nod to American legend. It was a signal to both NATO and the Soviets that the United States was willing to put nuclear power in the hands of ordinary soldiers. The Davy Crockett would become the first nuclear weapon system designed for use by the lowest level army units. In theory, a single squad with a jeep could hold back an entire armoured division. The Army's own planning documents claim that one Davy Crockett could replace dozens of traditional artillery shells in stopping an enemy advance. By August 1958, design approval was granted, and production began. The Army authorised more than 6,000 units, though only about 2,000 were ultimately built. The Davy Crockett was not just another weapon, it was the physical expression of a doctrine that put nuclear war within reach of the smallest fighting force. The idea seemed logical to planners, desperate for a way to balance Soviet strength. But the demand for portability and ease of use would soon collide with the harsh realities of nuclear physics and battlefield chaos. Two launchers defined the Davy Crockett system, the M28 and the M29. The M28, a 120mm recoilless rifle, was designed for mobility, with a maximum range of 1.25 miles, barely enough to keep its crew out of harm's way. The M29, heavier and more robust at 155mm, doubled the reach to 2.5 miles. Both could be set up on a tripod for static defence or mounted on a jeep, creating the infamous Nuke Jeep silhouette that became synonymous with the programme. At the core of both systems was the M388 projectile, a stubby cylindrical shell that concealed the W54 warhead. Weighing just over 50 pounds, the W54 was a feat of miniaturisation, packing a nuclear yield between 10 and 20 tons of TNT. For perspective, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima released about 15,000 tons. Yet even at this drastically reduced scale, the Davy Crockett could kill instantly within several hundred meters of detonation. Operation relied on a simple but unforgiving mechanism. The crew loaded the M388 onto a titanium piston, secured it, and fired. The propellant charge launched the round, and after a brief flight, shear pins snapped, freeing the projectile to glide toward its target. The smoothbore design, stabilised only by 4 fins, meant accuracy was limited. The circular error probable, CEP, was about 160 feet. Half the rounds would land within that distance of the aim point, but the rest could stray much farther, especially at maximum range. Precision was elusive. Hitting a moving target or a narrow pass was as much luck as skill. Safety controls reflected the weapon's contradictions. The M388 featured a 2-position height of burst switch, allowing detonation at either 2 or 40 feet above ground. A manual safety toggle and a time delay dial adjustable from 1 to 50 seconds were built in. If the delay was set too long, the warhead would hit the ground before arming, rendering it a dud by design. Every setting had to be correct, under pressure, in the field. Despite its size, the Davy Crockett's 20-ton yield could produce a lethal zone that overlapped the crew's own position if anything went wrong. Designed for portability and simplicity, it was a nuclear weapon shrunk to field gun proportions, but its risks were never small. Army doctrine for the Davy Crockett was blunt: block Soviet armour at choke points and create a radioactive barrier that nothing could cross. Crews were trained to set up at bridges, valleys and narrow passes, anywhere tanks would be forced to bunch together. The plan called for a 3-man team to unload the M29 from its jeep, set up the launcher, and fire the M388 nuclear round as enemy forces appeared. But as soon as the shot left the tube, survival became a matter of seconds. Manuals instructed crews to dig foxholes before firing, and to run for cover behind hills or embankments the instant the weapon launched. The official expectation was that a well-prepared team might escape with their lives. The only live fire test of this doctrine came at the Nevada test site on July 17, 1962. In Operation Ivy Flats, better known as Little Fella 1, a Davy Crockett was fired at a target 1.7 miles away. The colour footage from that day shows a small, bright mushroom cloud rising over the desert. What the film does not show is the invisible hazard, a burst of neutron and gamma radiation spreading out at the speed of light. Army data from the test overlaid with range charts revealed a grim truth. The lethal prompt radiation radius, where a human would receive a fatal dose in seconds, could stretch over 500 meters from ground zero. At typical firing distances, that radius overlapped the crew's own position. A single miscalculation, a gust of wind, or a targeting error could make the difference between stopping an enemy column and killing the team that pulled the trigger. The contradiction was undeniable. The weapon designed to save a squad could just as easily destroy it. For the Army, the Nevada test was proof that the Davy Crockett's operational plan was built on a dangerous gamble. Training with the Davy Crockett rarely meant handling a live nuclear round. Most soldiers spent their days practicing with inert projectiles. 714 of them launched between 1962 and 1968 at the Pohakaloa training area in Hawaii. Manuals drilled the basics: assemble the launcher, calculate the range, load the stubby M388, and hope that the round would land near the intended target. But the smoothbore design left accuracy to chance. Soldiers who trained on the system remember the tension. Some felt pride in carrying what they called a personal nuke. Others, staring down the firing tube, wondered if they would survive their own shot. Commanders grew uneasy. The prospect of a single squad triggering nuclear war kept senior officers awake at night. Brigadier General Alvin Cowan, who oversaw Davy Crockett units in Europe, later explained the Army's decision to retire the weapon, saying it was not just the technical limitations, but the great fear that some sergeant would start a nuclear war. The risk of escalation from a single chaotic moment on the battlefield was too great. By August 1967, the Army pulled the warheads from their European posts. The last Davy Crockett units were retired in 1971. The weapon faded from arsenals but left a lasting lesson. Putting nuclear power in the hands of ordinary soldiers proved a step too far, even for an era obsessed with deterrence. The Davy Crockett endures as a cautionary emblem, a reminder that not every technical breakthrough belongs on the battlefield. Today, more than 13,000 nuclear weapons still exist worldwide, many far more powerful than the Davy Crockett. As new technology makes battlefield nuclear weapons thinkable again, the line between deterrence and disaster grows thin. The real risk is not absurdity, it is forgetting how quickly logic can spiral towards self-destruction. Share your thoughts below.